Hey there, welcome back. In this video we're going to make a Viking Seax knife, or Seax. All we're doing here is cleaning off some of the steel that I had made off video before I decided I actually wanted to make this video. The original billet was actually forged on its corners and makes that kind of wavy pattern there in the center. And that's what it'll look like on that end right there. Kind of give you an idea where it came from. Each section of this steel was actually cut into about 4.5 inches. I had about 18, give or take, to use for the whole project. And now I'll do a little thumb wrestling with the Sharpie so that I can actually mark it for cutting. There we go. Right about here is when I realized that I actually needed that Sharpie that I just dropped, because I have to mark each end of each section that we're going to do. So I start with a 0 on one, and then a 1, then a 1 on the next one, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. You'll get the idea here in a second when we get everything all cut up. And this is what I meant. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch the odd numbers and bring them up, if I can grab it, and bring them together. And what that should do is actually line up those zigzags or W's when we finish the whole billet. Of course, you actually have to remember exactly how you had it. And this is where I figured, oh yeah, I got it right. Of course, once we get them all together, we're going to go ahead and weld them up. Then we'll clean off any excess from the weld and into the kerosene. Once the forge is up to temperature, we go ahead and pull that billet out and from the kerosene and put it in. It actually flares up a little bit. You can't quite see it in there. Then we're going to set those initial welds. Everything looks good so far. And with this billet, for the most part, it actually was. Then what I want to do is draw it out to the length that you see, which is about 3/8, give or take a little bit more than that. And then we're going to twist it. I twisted it clockwise for one part of the billet, and then I had enough that I was able to do it counterclockwise for the other. Then we'll clean off any of the excess scale to make sure that we don't get any cold shuts that are actually in the final billet. But we'll cut those up for the final build, or the final stack, as we get ready to put it back in the forge here shortly. For some contrast, I added some 15N20 that would go above and below the actual twists, some 80 CRV2 to add some meat to the actual blade itself. And here you can see the general layout. That's 15N20 that I'm cleaning up with the 80 CRV2 above and below the twisted Damascus centers. Here you can see some of that excess that I had to scrub off from the electric welding before I put it into kerosene. Once again, from the kerosene straight to the forge. At this point I was thinking that the forge welding was going really well. You can see that heat coming off of that billet as I'm going to set it. And this is kind of where things, I think, started to go wrong. Here I was trying to actually get some width to the actual billet itself, and everything was looking really good at this point. So I started to work on the tang and get that ready. I had a little excess, which actually turned into something later on. Now I'm cutting off that excess that I didn't actually need. The stuff that I'm holding is what would have been the actual blade. Do just a little bit of shaping of the tang. This will be a hidden tang knife, by the way. Up to this point, I was pretty happy with everything was coming along, and it looked really good. Right about here, I noticed a couple of spots, and then... So I tried to clean off some of the scale to see if I was right, and dug a little bit into the where I thought the delaminations were, and sure enough, here's a really big one. And here's another one. But you know, sometimes that stuff just kind of happens, and there's not a lot you can do about it, so... oh well. But I still wanted to make the Seax. So, I hate wasting steel, and I thought I'd use it anyway. Here you can kind of see where those delaminations actually were, and that they actually did go all the way through. So, here you can kind of see what those twists looked like on the ends. But they're not very wide, so I needed to add some meat back to the blade. More 15N20, cut down to about the same width as the original pieces that we had forged earlier. Using the layout fluid and cutting these lines was really a lot more precise, but it took a little bit longer than I would have liked. Again, we clean everything up with the acetone, get it ready. You can see there's definitely a lot more meat to this one than the previous billet. Once they're clean, we clamp them up for welding, which I'm not going to actually show. You've seen it before. I wasn't really sure I had enough flux to do this, but I think I'll be good. Then, like the previous two times, out of the kerosene and into the forge. This particular billet's going to go a little bit different. I'm only going to press straight down. I'm not going to try to press on the perpendicular ends like I did before. I was a little gun shy from that last go around. So this was an interesting lesson learned. I figured I'd try to do some hand hammering to get some width, but in the end, the press just works better. So here we have some makeshift kiss blocks, about 1.5 inches wide is what I was looking for, at least at this point. I wanted to make sure I had the length first before I went for any width. Now we're going to go ahead and set the tang. That end piece there is just a piece of rebar that I used for handling the entire billet while it was being forged, so... Again, I'm still a little gun shy, so I went really slow when forging the tang with the press this time, just because I didn't want anything to come apart. But I still had to do some hand hammering. This is actually where I'm drawing a part of the taper, and believe it or not, this isn't for the point, this is actually for the spine. Moment of truth to check all the welds, and everything came out good on this one. So all we're doing here is cleaning up the steel and getting preparation to lay it out, or lay out the design that I'm going for. Use some of this spray-on Dicom, which is absolutely awesome, and we'll just trace the design out using some French curves to get the right angles that we're looking for. Once everything's scribed in, we go ahead and start working that shape into the actual steel itself. Then we start working those bevels. This was a steep bevel because it goes all the way to the spine. Here you'll get to see exactly what I was talking about, where that bevel goes all the way to the spine. Now we drill a hole in the tang for the pin that we're going to put in later. And I just couldn't help myself. I needed to do a test etch to see how everything came out. Unfortunately, you couldn't really see that twisted pattern, maybe in a few little spots here and there, but for the most part, it was pretty well ground out. Ultimately, though, I really like the shape of this one. Thanks for sticking around here to the end. There's going to be a couple parts on this. This is just the blade build, but I hope to see you in the next video where we're going to start working on the heat treatment and handle. So be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.